Today, I'm going to talk about the time I had a subchorionic hemorrhage in my pregnancy and my best SEH survival tips. So if you're having it, that you don't have to have all the anxiety that I did. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Brittany and this is A Quiet Soul CA. Thank you for watching. I hope you like and subscribe. Let's jump right in. Back in 2017, I got pregnant. We were so excited, but on July 25th, I had a miscarriage. We were devastated. Trying to conceive after a miscarriage is so fearful. You don't have the same joy and excitement. Of course, if you are experiencing infertility, you're trying to wait for it to happen, but if it does happen, you're so excited. But once you've had a miscarriage, you can't have the joy. I don't know about you, but if you are labeled AMA, which means advanced maternal age, it sounds terrible, right? You're already having trouble trying to conceive and they slap a label on you and tell you, oh, this is going to be even harder than you thought. So that is what I was dealing with. In the wake of 2 miscarriages, your doctor probably will come to you like mine did to me and be like, look, we're going to send you to a fertility clinic. You're getting along in age and we think that you should get some tests done. So I went, what do you say to that? You have no idea why things aren't working. So you go, you're seeking answers. You're wanting to know, is there something I can do to keep this from happening? And so you go, you have tests, you have questions. You have to get up early and go before work so you don't lose your job. And it's not fun at all. But with that comes the hope that things will be better. Somebody told me that they got pregnant 2 cycles after their miscarriage, and I thought, hey, maybe this will be it. Well, boom, the first thing that my fertility clinic said to me, if you don't get pregnant this cycle, we are going to start doing IUI on you, and we're going to do it every cycle until you get pregnant and stay pregnant. On top of that, they said we're going to be submitting your name into a wait list for in vitro fertilization, because here in Canada you have 1 shot where you can get that, and they said there's a long wait list, so we want to submit it to you. I was devastated because I had no idea that they would force all this upon us. I wanted to get pregnant naturally, and I had no problems getting pregnant naturally. One of the tests that you have to do if things aren't going well is a sonohystogram with contrast is what they wanted to do. And what that is they inject saline into you and they do an imaging of your uterus and they hope to determine any problems that are keeping you from getting or staying pregnant. So that's something that they're supposed to do a test 7 days after the start of your cycle, but before you ovulate. When they scheduled it, they went ahead and scheduled it 10 days after my cycle started, and I said to them, hey, that's too late. I was worried about ovulating then because I have a short cycle and I ovulate early, and they were like, no, you'll be fine. And I was like, no, I really am worried about this. And they're like, look, we're all booked. Do you want to do this or not? Let's just book it. And if it's not going well and you start to ovulate, call us and then we'll reevaluate then. So I thought, okay, it made sense. So I thought, let's not worry. Let's just go with the flow. And so that's what I did. My app that told me when I would ovulate, and it was pretty stinking accurate, told me that was my day to ovulate. I was trying not to panic, but you know, when you're trying to conceive and you've had miscarriages or months after months of not, you get stressed out over everything and everything becomes a big deal. So I went ahead and took an ovulation test and I tested positive. Of course, it's supposed to be so exciting. That means, hey, let's do this, it's gonna happen. Maybe this will be the month. But no, that was the date of my test. And why I was so stressed out is that if I would have this test, they're injecting saline in me. That creates a hostile environment, or worse, if there's an egg, it could flush it out. How am I supposed to go through with that? But the lady said to me, look, and this is probably the cruelest thing that anyone could ever say to a person trying to conceive it at that point. She said, look, do you want us to help you get pregnant or not? And basically, I felt forced to go in. I was a wreck. I was crying, bawling at work. My supervisor probably thought I was mental, but I went ahead and went to my appointment. And when I got there, I was crying in the office. I was a wreck. The nurses didn't know what to do with me. And thank goodness for the doctor. He took pity on me, and he said, he wasn't my normal doctor. My normal doctor would have pressured me to do it. But this one said, you know what, you don't seem to have any problems getting pregnant, so I'm not sure that this is truly urgent today. Maybe we can schedule it for next month. And so I breathed a sigh of relief. September 10th rolls around and I got a positive pregnancy text. I was elated. I knew it. I knew this was my cycle. This was my last chance to get pregnant laterally, and then I was 9 days later. So I rushed in the office. They were a little leery that they didn't believe me at first, but I took the test, and when they called me with the results, I had my HCG, which is the pregnancy hormone, was 9.9, which isn't the highest. It's actually pretty low. They told me I was barely pregnant, but that was it. I had confidence that this would be the one. They told me, come back 2 days later and we'll test you again. The 2-day wait is agonizing. If you've never had to have HCG drawn, you won't know, but the whole 2 times you're waiting and hoping that it's going to double, because there's this magical number. If it doesn't double, then your pregnancy is not going to be viable no matter what. It's almost 0 case scenario. If it doesn't at least double, you're not going to have a good pregnancy. Well, I've had 2 other times before where I've been waiting for 2 days, hoping this number would go up, and it didn't. Or it barely did. So I was just holding my breath, hoping that this would be the one, and my number quadrupled to 52, more than quadrupled. So I was ecstatic. I was so excited, and we had to do a 2-day wait again. After 2 more days, I did my 3rd HCG check, and wouldn't you know it, it had quadrupled again to 214. This was actually the highest number I'd ever reached. So I was ecstatic. I was so excited that this has never happened to me before, so I was thrilled. Cautiously hopeful. And that meant I didn't have to do another check in 2 more days, so I got to wait a whole week. I went in again. It was more than doubling. It was at 4,800, so that was huge. It was going so well. So at that point, they're like, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and schedule you for an ultrasound on October 2nd. So I was thrilled. I was waiting for it and so excited. Everything was going really well, not like my other 2 miscarriages, so we were feeling very hopeful. All that came to a screeching halt when I started out of the blue to have spotting. I had went to someone's house, we were hanging out, we were eating something. I ate something earlier that day, and all of a sudden I started to have this really weird crampy feeling, and I was like, oh no. So I went to the bathroom and I actually had diarrhea. Sorry folks, but it was really bad diarrhea. In fact, I went back to the bathroom for 4 different times. I felt so embarrassed for one, but I was like worried because on the 4th trip to the bathroom, I started having spotting. Not just a little spotting. Now, I don't mean like the implantation bleeding where you see a little bit of light pink on your toilet paper. This was bright red spotting. It filled almost the entire tissue wad. And so I was feeling very concerned because after 2 miscarriages, bleeding is terrible. And so I thought, I'm having another miscarriage. That's what my fear. I was really worried. So of course, I call my doctor and they schedule an appointment for me to come in. The doctor asked me if I had cramping, and you know, I didn't have any persistent cramping. Once the diarrhea was gone, I seemed to be pretty much normal, but then I had a little bit of residual spotting, but not much after that. So I waited and waited and waited, and this was an emergency appointment. I had to wait till they could fit me in, and so it seems like I was there for 2 hours. Finally, they got me in, and you know, if you've ever been in an ultrasound, especially ones where something is maybe not going right, they don't talk to you. At least here in Canada, the ultrasound tech is not allowed to tell you what's going on. And so I was sitting there waiting, hoping. I'm looking on the screen, trying to find something, and they wouldn't tell me. I'm crying, and they really wouldn't tell me anything. Finally, the ultrasound said, I'm probably under duress. I'm not sure she was supposed to tell me this, but she said, well, I will tell you that your pregnancy looks like it's in the right place and not to worry. So I didn't know if she was telling me the truth. I did notice that she wrote something on the ultrasound screen, and what she wrote was SCH. And I thought, what could that be? So of course, I Googled it, like any self-respecting person would, and what I could find out was SCH seemed to stand for Subchorionic Hematoma or Subchorionic Hemorrhage. Well, that sounds absolutely dreadful. So if you're watching this because you found out that you had it or think you might have it, it sounds very scary. But from what I looked at, and I Googled a lot, it seemed to say that there was a very low chance of having a miscarriage. Well, October 2nd comes around, and that was my scheduled ultrasound date, so I went in for the ultrasound. I was measuring 6 weeks and 3 days, and I had a great heartbeat. It was measuring between 119 and 137, so that seemed nice and pretty strong for a baby that early. They said it was a little bit small, but a good size for a baby, and so I was feeling very relieved at that point. They were much more forthcoming at that time, and because they could show me the heartbeat, and also, I got to speak with the doctor directly after, and of course, I immediately wanted to know, hey, what's up with this SCH? I was like, do I have the subchorionic hemorrhage? And he said, well, how do you know that? And I said, I looked at the screen and I saw SCH, and so put 2 and 2 together. And he said, well, you're not supposed to know about that. He was brushing it to the side, but I wanted to know the facts. And so he said, well, basically, when the placenta detaches a little bit from your uterus lining and a blood pocket basically forms there. That sounds scary, but he said there's 3 possibilities. Either 1 stays the same, 2 gets bigger, and detaches the placenta completely, which he said is extremely rare. It doesn't usually happen. 3, he said, it will actually get smaller. The baby will continue to grow around it or even pop it, so to speak. And he said at that point you could have a little bit more spotting. So he said, I'm going to put you on pelvic rest. And I had already Googled about this, pelvic rest, and not doing anything and make your pelvis work, including stairs and jumping and any other normal pelvis activities. So yeah, he said actually that it wasn't necessary. And I said, what? And he said, well, technically, it probably won't affect it either way. He said, but you don't want to have that guilt feeling that is in your brain. You could be like, what if I didn't do this? Would my baby still be here? So he said, you know, do whatever you want, but he recommends against it. So I did. I rested. I took it easy. Tried not to run to go to the bus, to miss my bus. A lot of times if it means the difference of being 10 minutes later and 10 minutes earlier, sometimes I would run, but at that point I'd try not to run. And the 6-week wait was on. He said, rest until 12 weeks, and at that, then you'll know. October 16th, I had another exam. When you go to a fertility clinic, you get to go every 2 weeks. You see your baby more times than you will ever see in a normal pregnancy. This time was a great update. The heartbeat was 170 beats per minute. She was growing nicely. It was a healthy 2 centimeters, and I was 8 weeks along. So I inquired with the doctor. I was like, hey doctor, how are things going with the SEH? You know, wanting to know. I mean, come on, like when you know that you have a blood pocket inside of you that could like detach your placenta, you want to hear about it. But wouldn't you believe I never heard about it again? He's like, don't worry about it. I don't think he said it was small or it was little. He was just, he really downplayed it. He was like, yeah, don't think about it. It's fine. So I was like, okay, but for me, it's really hard not to know, to not think about it. But that's what I tried to do. Out of the blue, I start bleeding again. 24 weeks is not a good time to show up in labor and delivery for an emergency because you're bleeding. It was the weekend. I was scared to death. We were in our house. We were actually going down the elevator, and my husband was like, when's the last time you felt the baby kick? And I thought, when was the last time I felt the baby kick? I couldn't remember. I thought it was, I didn't pay attention to these things because they would kick so often. But like, when you don't pay attention, you never think about, you're gonna need to know. So it seemed like an eternity when I was sitting there waiting, like waiting and waiting for a kick. Then halfway to the hospital, like, I felt a kick and I felt so relieved. Okay, so at least the baby's kicking, so maybe I'm bleeding, but at least the baby's kicking. And I tell you, like, there's no more scary thing in pregnancy than to see bright red blood. You're not supposed to see that. Like, maybe a little bit of brownish, like a little bit of crusty blood, but not bright red blood. That's just bad. When we got to the hospital, we had another heart attack, because you know they hook you up to the baby monitor, and they hooked me up, and they were positioning it, and they were positioning it, and they were positioning it. And when I got there, I was feeling pretty good because the baby kicked, a little bit anxious, but then when they kept rearranging it around and there was no heartbeat, I was waiting and waiting and waiting for that little, like, really loud doo-doo-doo-doo, nothing. It seemed like an eternity until, boom, finally they felt it, and I was like, I was thinking in that moment, like, I know the baby kicks, so you gotta find a heartbeat there. A baby doesn't kick without a heartbeat. Okay, so finally, heartbeat kicked. And you know, like when you go unplanned into the emergency room, there's ladies having babies, there's ladies having emergency C-sections. I was not the priority. So I was there with my husband for probably about 3 hours waiting for them to help you. Finally, they were like, we need to do an exam. So we did an exam, and turns out it was only a polyp. So twice in this pregnancy, I have a super stressful bleeding, bright red blood, bleeding, and then it turns out it's nothing. So my takeaways from this is you can have bleeding in pregnancy and it's nothing. In fact, my mother was told by the doctors when she was having me that she was bleeding and she was gonna have a miscarriage and to go home. And then like 2 months later, she still didn't have her period, and she was like gaining weight 2 or 3 months, and she realized, well, maybe they were wrong. So there can be happy case scenarios to bleeding in pregnancy. Even though I've had 2 bad case scenarios, that can be really good case scenarios too. So I hope that can bring encouragement to you. Pregnancy can be a really crazy, scary ride, but if you're watching this because you've experienced bleeding, I'm going to give you my best bleeding tips to maybe help you out. So 1, when in doubt, check it out. Obviously, it goes without saying that if you're experiencing anything other than really light spotting, you should go to the hospital, especially if it's connected with cramping, back pain, anything severe. You should definitely go. Don't waste time. Sometimes they can help you and put you on medicines if it's something that needs to be helped. So Don't hesitate, don't be embarrassed, go. You will feel good to know that you are doing all you can for this baby. So like take it easy on the stairs, don't do any exercise. I wouldn't recommend bouncy bike rides or anything that like can be jarring. Like if you're extra trying to be careful, then this is the best time to pelvic rest if you think you have an SEH or something going on. Tip number 3, skip the guilt. I don't know if you've had a miscarriage, and if you haven't, these are really important words, because someone who's having a miscarriage or something going wrong in pregnancy, they already have so much innate guilt. You have to just like not think about it. If you know someone that's having something go wrong, don't ever tell them like, oh, maybe it was because you did this. They're already thinking that themselves. It's hard enough without everybody telling you what's going wrong that could be your fault, and you already have those thoughts, so try not to think about it. Most of the time, things that go wrong in pregnancies are chromosomal abnormalities or problems, fatal, problems that the baby cannot survive, so you can't bring that guilt into it. I'm a Christian, and I truly believe that God knows what's going to happen, and I believe my babies that didn't make it went straight to heaven and are with Him, and I'll see them again someday. But I try not to think that I caused them, because I didn't do anything and these things just happen. Whether your baby makes it or not, try to skip the guilt. Tip number 4, be positive. I know that sometimes when things aren't going well, that's a really, really hard thing to do in pregnancy. I've been there. You think about all the worst case scenarios. You go to WebMD and then you notice that your baby has cancer. I'm just joking, but seriously though, half the things you can Google can scare the crap out of you, so try to stay positive. Try to focus on the good. Your body, when you get that negative adrenaline in you, it can take away from the good things that take care of your baby. So get those fluids, put on your happy music, happy movie, whatever it takes to make you get in the happy zone, and then just do your best to not think about the worst case scenario, and you can get through this. Bonus tip, you can spot in pregnancy that aren't necessarily something really bad. So 1, implantation. So probably you're past that stage, but implantation you can spot. So that would be a non-stressful reason for spotting. 2, uterine expansion, that could be another reason, and so not something to worry about. 3, intercourse, that is very normal. That can also irritate polyps, including going to the bathroom, number 2. So if you have spotting after one of those, that could very well be a cause. Increases or changes in your hormone levels can also cause, unexpected spotting. And lastly, as I mentioned before, vaginal exams, those can cause spotting. So those are many reasons that can cause the spotting. So if you're having spotting right after one of those and it's just lighter pink, not so concerning as bright red blood, that is something I would recommend to check out. I hope that if you're undergoing something crazy, that it turns out well. I wish everybody to have a happy ending in their story. If you haven't watched my birth story, go ahead and check it out. I'll link it up here. And I'd love for you to stick around, subscribe, like this video if it's been a help to you. Your encouragement fuels me on. Hi, this is Brittany. I'm talking about faith, film, and family. We really appreciate you joining us today. We had a lot of fun making this, and we really love when you like and subscribe. And feel free to stick around and watch some more videos.